police department, if the police department is called to the scene of an active enforcement effort by federal immigration officers, under federal law, Carlsbad police officers cannot interfere with or impede federal agents who are carrying out their duties. Federal law generally takes precedence over state or local law under the supremacy clause. What that means in practice: if Carlsbad PD receives a call about a crime or a public safety threat involving federal agents, we will respond just as we would for any member of the public, and the federal agents would call us the same way through dispatch. The California Department of Justice Attorney General's Office put out guidance to all law enforcement agencies on January 17th, 2025, which is Exhibit 4 attached to the staff report. The guidance and the law state that if the safety of the public or a law enforcement officer, to include an immigration officer, is in danger, there is a public safety exception for local law enforcement officers to respond. There may be circumstances where our officers do not know in advance whether the underlying federal activity is immigration related or not. This morning's incident is an example of that. Once on scene, officers will address public safety issues, enforce California criminal law, and maintain peace, just like in any other call for service. This includes responding to emergencies which may involve injuries, threats of violence, property crime, among others, even if immigration officers are present. If people on scene are detained for criminal acts under California law, not just for immigration reasons, we will enforce state law. Our officers may coordinate with federal agents to ensure scene safety. Examples are crowd control, traffic control, just like this morning, emergency care, but not to help with immigration-specific enforcement actions. Officers will maintain a calm, impartial response and prioritize safety of all persons present, including civilians and federal agents. Officers will communicate clearly with all parties about roles and expectations while on scene, and supervisors will respond on scene in cases where we are dispatched if federal immigration authorities are present, to ensure that once our role related to state law is complete, our officers disengage. In short, our focus will be on public safety, criminal law enforcement under California law, protecting the First Amendment, and maintaining community trust. Trust between law enforcement and the community is the shared confidence that police will act fairly, lawfully, and in the community's best interest, while the community will cooperate, communicate honestly, and respect lawful authority. The Carlsbad Police Department has a long track record for many years of facilitating peaceful protests because there is shared trust. Some of the more recent protests where thousands of people filled areas of our city was the George Floyd BLM protests of 2020 and the multiple No Kings protests just last year. We firmly believe the success in these protests remaining peaceful is due to the communication and the collaboration we have with those exercising their First Amendment rights, no matter what it is they're protesting, as well as the strong stance that we take as a police department in protecting our residents and protecting our city. We take de-escalation seriously and practice it daily. We also firmly believe that while the First Amendment is robust, it does not present immunity from all laws. Peaceful protests are nonviolent and non-threatening. We've made it clear with those protesting that we do not tolerate lawlessness in our city, and we have had great success with people exercising their First Amendment within the limits of the law.
I've been very fortunate to live here in Carlsbad for so long. I frequented the Dove Library most days of the week when they were little, and seeing the video of the agents, multiple cars, multiple masked men with guns there, somewhere that I had walked in and out of so many times, made me very scared.
What do I do with my 94-year-old mother who loves to go to the Dove Library with her legal citizen and legal documented immigrant, green card immigrant caretaker? What do I do if they just come up because the color of their skin or their accents or they speak Spanish and take her away? She's in a wheelchair. Will she in her flustering be able to remember to call my name?
Can we trust you to protect to protect our vulnerable community members? Can the community trust that you will intervene when you witness federal agents using unlawful force? Are you going to intervene when you see civil rights being violated, such as racial profiling and warrantless arrests? The community needs you and wants to trust you. You have power and authority, so how will you use it? When human beings endure suffering, it's time to stand up.
It would be great if we could have another level of transparency and collaboration even with our citizen patrols. We do have citizen patrols that are monitoring ICE activity, and if there is a way that we could collaborate, it would involve trust on both sides.
Who would want to come to a beach town when poorly trained ICE agents can abduct or assault tourists in their swimsuits, perhaps just because they are very tan?
Immigration agents engage in tactics that are unconstitutional, unlawful, and just unnecessarily cruel. As it happened today on Faraday, just west of Orion, as I was the first person to get there after the action had taken place. I was the one to deal with the wife of the individual that was taken after they had smashed his window, dragged him out of his truck, tore his seatbelt, all without a warrant, detaining him despite him having documentation of an active immigration case.
We have seen 2 brutal murders in Minnesota of people exercising their constitutional rights and clear abuses by federal agents that led to one of the murders. If called, what will Carlsbad PD do to protect citizens from abuses and death by federal agents who are acting illegally and lawlessly? Will they defend the innocent citizens or stand by and do nothing?
Is CPD committed to upholding every single part of our Constitution for every single person within the bounds of our city? This includes, but surely isn't limited to, the right to due process for everyone. I can assure you from my personal experience working closely with the community after someone is taken, that there are many instances where these agents are not following the Constitution.
I work with the families in the Hispanic area of Carlsbad, and we have 5 families who've lost their father, have been deported. I don't know why, and I don't ask why, but I have 3 high school students without a father. I have 2 elementary students without a mother. So no one sees the impact of the immigration laws or what's happening in our country than I do, because I work in the barrio. I see families every single day. I do a food pantry, and 30% of our Hispanic residents are not coming in because they're staying home, afraid to go out. So I'm having to funnel volunteers to deliver food, not only to families, children, and for seniors. The seniors are also most vulnerable in that area as well.
Do we have any authorities of these agencies when they are in our city?
That is a great question. I have 0 authority over the federal government.
If I'm in my vehicle and I don't trust the identification of these federal law enforcement officers because of the appearance that we've been seeing lately, and I just want to stay in my car until I am hoping that you arrive, what should I expect? Should I also expect that they will break into the car and try to?
I would say yes, because we had a recent case where this happened.
Do we know how many ICE enforcement actions were made in Carlsbad this year?
We do not.
Right. And I gathered that, so I knew that answer. But just for the public, why is it that we don't have a count and know what those enforcement actions were in Carlsbad this year?
Because we do not work for ICE. We do not work for Border Patrol. We're a local municipality that runs our own police department. And so they are often in our city doing enforcement, and we are not a part of that. We follow SB 54. Many times they're in our city, they come and go, and we don't even know that they're here. And quite honestly, we don't want to be involved because we will be violating SB 54 if we are.
There was a question about clarifying misinformation at Dove Library, so I did want to follow up with that to see what your sort of takeaway from that was.
Yes, I watched the video, and I watched it borderline obsessively because what I was reading from some of the complaints that were coming into the city was not congruent with what I was seeing in the video. I did not see long guns. I saw federal officers wearing bulletproof vests similar to what our officers wear, the outer carriers. They did have gun belts on. They were driving minivans and SUVs. They were casually walking on the very northern part of the library in the parking lot there. It looked like a standard debrief or filling out paperwork of some sort. They were not tactically doing any sort of enforcement from what I could see in that video.
I'm not clear as to what was meant by the word protect in the instance of an ICE incident, because wouldn't that be considered interfering in their operation if you did do something like that? I'm not sure.
Yes, I did get some questions at the break specific to that, and it's hard to give a concrete answer because there's so many nuances to every single police call. No single police call is the same. So I can't give a blanketed answer. We will come to the call if called. Our main objective is public safety for everybody on scene. That includes the people that are citizens or residents or calling us, as well as the federal agents on scene.
If someone is recording within their legal rights and obviously not breaking the law, and what kind of protection do they have if there were an encounter? I know this is a hypothetical and there are a lot of assumptions built into this question. What protection would they have if they were to be approached by a federal agent and that federal agent is trying to engage them in something that we've seen, unfortunately, across the country?
Yeah, I think there's a large request for us as Carlsbad police officers to protect, I'll use the word protect, from U.S. immigration officers. That is very difficult to answer because, like I said, every single encounter is different. If we get called to a scene and somebody is filming and they're calling saying, hey, I'm filming immigration officers right now and I want you to come here, we're going to show up and we're going to assess what's going on. But to assume that we are going to intercede and interfere with the agents on scene, we cannot. It's against the law for us to do that. If anything, we would probably show up, and if the interaction was still going on, we're going to keep the peace, talk to the citizen that notified us that they would like us to come, and figure out how to separate parties to keep the peace and ensure that there's safety for everybody.
What happens if agents are in and around our community and they're either following a child home, they're knocking on someone's door, whatever else? It sounds like it would be a similar situation as to what you just shared, yes. Or would it be a little different?
In instances where somebody's knocking on your door and you don't know who they are, I would absolutely recommend people calling 911, and we will show up and we will assess and figure out if it is a legitimate police officer or if it's somebody who's acting as one. In terms of what can people do if they see law enforcement from the feds, like following people or stopping them, I would say do not obstruct, do not interfere because it's against the law. If you would like to film from a safe place, by all means. Once people put their hands on officers, once they get in between a arrestee and an officer, once they put their car in the middle of a scene of an officer, they are violating the law and they will most likely be arrested.